ours, victory is ours, through him who loved us. Victory is ours, victory is ours, through him who loved us. Thanks for indulging me in starting over. So that first verse is actually, those words come from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And the sentiment was so amazing that I couldn't believe there's only one verse in the Black Book. So whether I really had any business doing so or not, I wrote 2 more verses to to flesh it out, and it actually fits really well with the Romans passage today. So thank you for your indulgence. And I would thank you ahead of time for indulging me also. Usually there's not a whole lot that I read through a sermon. Normally I may have a few notes, and most of the time I'm just talking to you. But as I was writing notes during study this week, my notes started turning into sentences, and my sentences started turning into paragraphs, and it just kind of started rolling. So please indulge me and know that even if mediated a little more by my pen than usual, it still is from my heart as I preach not just to you, but very much as with every sermon, to myself as well. Have you ever sent someone a blistering email, and the minute you pushed the button, you wished that the technology existed to unsend it? Maybe. Or have you ever spat out wounding words for which an apology, no matter how earnest, would never adequately bring healing? Bless those who persecute you, says Paul, quoting Jesus. Bless and do not curse them. That can be a tall order. Now, sometimes we've caught ourselves before cursing. We've started typing a scathing text to someone and then thought better of it, hit the little backup arrow over and over again till it went away. Or we have nearly sent an equally scathing Facebook comment, but at the last minute either deleted it or at least tweaked it to be far more thoughtful and far less wrathful. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Sometimes the best blessing we can muster is simply to refrain from cursing. Sometimes the most good we can do is to keep from doing harm. You may have heard the story before that Abraham Lincoln had a tried and true system of dealing with these sorts of things, working through his desire to curse. In situations where he was truly incensed with someone, he would often write out invective letters, sometimes several pages worth, and then having processed his bitterness and exhausted his rancor, he crumbled them up and threw them into the fireplace. Then he could deal with the situation in a more even-tempered, a more blessed way. When I was in high school, one of my jobs was to be turnkey at my home church, which involved going up in the evening, and I would open doors and set up tables and chairs for groups that met there. Then I would hang out in case they had any needs. Usually I could get some homework done, which was a bonus. And then when they left, I would clean up, put away tables and chairs, and lock the doors. And I don't even remember exactly what it was, but the lady who ran the Weight Watchers group was particularly mean to me at one point, and I was really ticked. And while they were meeting and while I was supposed to be doing homework instead, I was rehearsing in my mind the great tongue lashing that I wanted to give her for her rudeness. And by the time I had rehearsed all the terrible things that I wanted to say to her, my anger was spent, and it was all good. And obviously I have since forgotten whatever the insult was. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. The scripture moves on, as Ralph read for us this morning. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. I find myself often using that when I have the opportunity to lead prayer time. That just is a verse that has stuck with me. It seems like it would be a simple thing to do, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. But sometimes the simple things are the hardest things to do. Sometimes when others are feeling joy, we need to resist jealousy in order to truly join them in their joy. When I was busy beating the bushes to get vaccine appointments for Jen and I, and friends would gleefully share how they had just walked into vaccination appointments, I had to resist my initial, "How the hell did you get appointments when I can't?" reaction in order to be glad for them and with them. Were any of the rest of you there? On the other hand, when others are feeling sadness and pain, we need to resist those easy platitudes that address our discomfort more than their pain and show them solidarity in their sorrow. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Like Job's friends did initially, remember? They got it right for the first couple of weeks where they simply were present to Job in his pain. It wasn't until afterwards that they started yakking all their silly stuff that got them in trouble. We need to do the same, simply be with people in their pain. Paul continues, live in harmony with one another. Live in harmony with one another. So much of our animus toward one another in our current cultural context seems to come from the deep reservoirs of resentment and grievance that we have dug for ourselves, instead of tapping into fountains of reconciliation and grace. Live in harmony with one another. Our country and its current cultural constitution is not particularly helpful at the moment in this regard. Perhaps we could each ask ourselves about our favorite cable TV hosts. Are they helping us live in harmony with others? Are they extolling us to a nobler vision of our collective purpose? Or are they excoriating the people with whom we disagree and whipping us into a frenzy? How about our social media feeds, for those of us that have social media feeds? Is our social media feed connecting us to diverse voices, multiple perspectives, and thoughtful conversations? Or is our social media feed making us think we are wiser than we are, confirming all our personal biases, preparing us to challenge all those so-called experts because now we've done our research via Facebook meme and YouTube video? Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. This speaks to us in matters of our personal faith as well. It begs us to ask ourselves why we have chosen to claim the name Christian. Have we claimed the name because we are inspired by the life-teaching faith, ministry, and sacrificial example of Jesus? Or have we identified as Christian because it gives us a tribe and makes us feel superior to all those godless rubes who aren't in the tribe? Are we grateful to be Christians because, like the tax collector in Jesus' parable, we have been overwhelmed by God's grace and forgiveness? Or is our gratitude like that of the Pharisee? Thank God I'm not like that tax collector. Live in harmony. Do not be haughty. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. Paul calls us, insofar as it depends on us, to live in harmony with one another, to pursue peace, and to pursue that which ennobles all. And we can't do that if we take delight in being at enmity with each other, disparaging one another from the safe distance of cyberspace, or within enclaves of like-minded compatriots who confirm our biases and bolster our already inflated egos. Paul also calls on us to follow the example of Jesus by associating with the lowly. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Now, Now, lowly can mean many things, refer to many groups of people. We perhaps most often associate the lowly with the poor, or with those of lesser social status, whatever that might be. But lowly could also refer to those people we are most likely to look down upon, for whatever reason. For country folks, it might be those elitist city folks. For city people, it might be those country bumpkins. For red state conservatives, it might be blue state liberals, and vice versa. But what if instead of looking down on one another, we entered into relationship with one another, associated with one another, pacifists with soldiers, silent generation and baby boomers with millennials and Gen Zers, cisgender and LGBT, conservatives and liberals, black and white and brown and Asian and every hue in between? With whom might you associate in order to be humbled and changed and empowered to live just a bit more peaceably with all? And if the opportunities for direct association with those people are limited, as in some instances they are, how might you simply come to understand them better, to rejoice when they rejoice, to weep when they weep? How will we take our personal decision to follow Jesus and make it into a social resolution to love and serve Jesus' brothers and sisters, all of God's children? If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. It is a tall order, for sure. But yielded, truly, earnestly yielded to God's grace and to the Spirit of Christ, we can at the very least hold up our end of the covenant. And as we live into that commitment, God will never fail to embrace us. God's Spirit will not fail to empower us. God's Son, Jesus Christ, will not fail to embolden us and steady our feet when we inevitably stumble. It's true, we are no more likely to reach the promise of perfect peace and reconciliation in our time than Moses was able himself to reach the promised land in his. But that's not the point. The point is that there is faith in the following. There is joy in the journey. There is love in the living. And there is power in the provision of our God along the way. And though we will surely face failures of faith, God will never fail us. God's never failed us yet.
Pastor Larry?
Yeah.
Thank you for that wonderful message. And I think we all need to put it into practice and try our best to do what we know we should do. And most of the time, none of us remember that. Thank you again.
Thank you.